Welcome back to the Old School Cool project. What we're going to look at today is the quick release steering wheel. Now what I've got everything done here so far is that we've got this mocked up. Everything's in place just as it will function. And let you take a look here. What we've got is a Grant 1300 quick release kit installed on this. One of the things I want to show you is this plate. Now you don't get this plate right here with that Grant kit, but when I installed this without the plate, it had exposed all of the turn signal switch. So what we did was, let's just take it off there and let you take a look at it. This is simply a donut of aluminum plate. It's this happens to be 5052 aluminum, 90 thousandths thick. The OD is 3 3/4, while the ID is 3/4 of an inch. Now to make this work, I think you can see there in the video that all of this would have been exposed. You know what you'd have been looking at had this that plate not been installed, was you'd have seen all this turn signal assembly. So one thing we did was to remove the horn switch activator. Now we're going to lose the horn button because of this. The horn button will not be functional any longer. Now what that looked like was this little plunger sat right here. Now what would have happened is, if we wouldn't have removed this plunger, the horn button would have been activated all the time. Now we could have unwired it somewhere else, but this little plunger, and there is a spring that goes behind it, and it touches a little wire in there. It would have would have rubbed on the back of that and might have made some noise, and so we decided to pull that turn signal switch. Now I'm not going to pull this apart any further, but I will tell you that this thing doesn't come apart like you would think. There are 3 great big screws to remove this turn signal switch, and you would think that if I removed those screws all the way that I could pull that switch out. And there's some slack down here in the wire that feeds up through the column to feed this switch. But what happens is there's actually a plate in there, and these screws pass through the turn signal switch and then this part of the column, and then each of those has a spring on them, and then there is a stamped plate that those screws attach to. You don't have to remove these screws all the way. What you do is you loosen those up, and then this whole assembly will turn, I don't know, 10-15 degrees, and then it will slide off. And once you get that slid back, and there's plenty of wire to bring that back, then you can finish the disassembly. I thought I was just going to remove those screws and then pull the turn signal switch forward, I've got the stalk for the turn signals off, and then this emergency light piece just simply unscrews, and I thought I was going to pull that switch out. But there's no way to get it back together, because once you pull those screws all the way out, that plate back there falls off along with all 3 of the springs. So don't make the same mistake I did. Now I've since been thinking about how I removed this, and if you truly don't care about your turn signal switch, I think what you could do is, this plunger sits right here inside that hole. You could probably just grab this thing with a pair of vice grips. You can see it's got a little bit of a flange cut on it. You could probably pull that straight out with a pair of vice grips. Save you some time disassembling the column and some headache that way. Anyway, that's really all there is to it. What we're going to do is we're going to put a little coat of semi-gloss black on this, try to match the steering column, and reassemble this, and put the owner's old parts back in a bag for him, and this part of the project should be done. So let me get this going back together, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, here we are back. I got the plate, little shot of semi-gloss black, and we're going to go ahead and put this thing back together. Just as before, it simply slides over the column, and then the quick release spine goes on. I do want to show you something else, and I went ahead and took the rest of the assembly loose. And this is the piece, and I'm sure this is a Grant part number. Looks like it's die cast in Zamac or something. There's a part number 10158 on it. I'm not sure if that's the Grant part number or not. But this is the part that was attached before. This spline piece, this was what was on there before. And it's got a standard 3-hole Grant adapter. But that would have put the steering wheel way too close to the column. So what they had on this thing before was this adapter. And I'm sure this is a Grant piece as well. Part number 10749 on it. And it simply is an adapter. And one thing I did have to do was I had to modify this because the hole in the center would not pass over the nut on the steering column, which wasn't a problem. Well, let's see. Well, the way it worked before was this piece was attached with some screws here, and then this whole thing went on, and then the nut went on. But because this all goes on and off all the time, I had to increase the size of this hole. Now it's got this plastic ribbed piece that went over this, and it just kind of gets captured or got captured before between this I'll call it like an escutcheon plate that went over the column over top of that adapter. And I also had to open up the hole in this as well. Now, before this went on this way, and it's this outside diameter, this matches the column, and it made a nice transition. But in an attempt to also clean this up, by putting this this plate in there, it meant that, let's see, once this quick release goes on, and this piece goes on here, then this rubber piece didn't have anything to capture it. It would just slide off. So what we're going to do is flip this piece over and put it on as such. And it closely fits here and provides a nice round transition here, because what's going to happen is the driver's going to have to reach down here and pull this lever back. So anyway, just worth noting. Let's go ahead and get this thing finished up. Okay, so that's it. That's what she looks like. I'll put some pictures here at the end with a little closer shots so you can see it at some different angles. But it's going to be as simple as probably reaching around the steering column and pulling that ring back and pulling the steering wheel off. it is a little snug, and I think a lot of that is because it is it's new. I think that that will probably help out. It does have a little bit of play in it, which I don't know if that'll bother the guy or not. You know, the splines, you know, just are not going to be as tight as, you know, a bolted joint. Anyway, that's it for the quick release steering wheel. Stay tuned for more parts of the Old School Cool project. Thanks for watching.